The origins of COVID-19 are still a hotly contested subject, and that might always be the case, because definitive proof of where exactly a virus originates is hard to establish. But this issue is also about more than just an abstract scientific study. At this point, deciding where exactly COVID-19 came from and how it came about is as much about attributing blame as anything else. And let's just say Republicans have made their feelings on the issue clear in a new report. Here's what you need to know. Republicans on the U.S. House Intelligence Committee say significant circumstantial evidence exists that the coronavirus pandemic originated from a leak at China's Wuhan Institute of Virology, according to the Times of London. The report, which contradicts WHO conclusions following its investigative mission in Wuhan, claims the lab in Wuhan had been conducting what it calls dangerous research on coronaviruses and had not followed necessary safety protocols, risking an outbreak. The report goes on to add that researchers in the lab were struck with COVID-19-like symptoms in late 2019. Addressing the idea that COVID-19 occurred naturally by jumping from another species to humans, the report says little circumstantial evidence has emerged. This view is corroborated by Alina Chan, molecular biologist at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard, who told Politico none of the hundreds of animal samples collected from the Huanan seafood market widely linked to the outbreak had any trace of the virus. The report's findings are, however, contested by Robert Garry, virologist at the Tulane School of Medicine in New Orleans, who pointed out to Politico that the majority of early cases in humans were linked to different markets that sold wildlife or wildlife products in Wuhan. Joel Wertheim, evolutionary biologist at the University of California, San Diego, also countered the lab argument, noting that lab-manipulated viruses are usually made up of pieces from other known viruses, whereas SARS-CoV-2 does not closely resemble any previously characterized virus. The most probable origin scenario remains a natural zoonosis from bats or an intermediate animal host, he added. For its part, the World Health Organization has also come out very clearly against the lab argument, stating that while accidents at labs are possible, there had been no publication or research of this virus or one close to this virus anywhere in the world prior to the 2019 outbreak, and that does sound quite definitive. However, various elements of this debate are ongoing, even among those whose opinions carry most weight. For instance, David A. Relman, a microbiologist at Stanford University, told Politico lab accidents are much more common than any of us know or would like to admit, and they occur worldwide and even in the most safe and secure labs. Meanwhile, Christian Anderson, virologist at the Scripps Research Institute in San Diego, was clear that this particular kind of lab leak would be unheard of. There are no examples of lab escapes of novel, previously unknown viruses having led to outbreaks, let alone pandemics, he said. Famous examples of SARS, H1N1, and Ebola were all caused by known viruses, which have already been selected for their ability to infect humans. The same is not true for a virus randomly sampled by a researcher from a bat. So what can we, the watching public, conclude from this new Republican report? Probably very little. Expert opinion favors the idea that the virus transferred from another species to humans, likely via a Wuhan wet market. However, there are enough qualified people saying that a lab leak is theoretically possible to make that theory at least worth thinking about. One conclusion that could be on offer here and now, though, is that if there is a legitimate discussion to be had, maybe it's best not led by politicians, because we need more light, not more heat, on this particular origin story. And that's very, very unlikely to be generated by a report released by obviously partisan politicians engaged in geopolitical mind games. You know? Now check out some more detailed science on the origins of the virus.
Scientists say they may have pinned down the evolutionary history of COVID-19. And yes, it has to do with the pangolins. SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, could be a hybrid that descended from different clades of bat and pangolin viruses, according to new research in Science Advances. Writing in a news release, the team says the bat virus RATG13 is the closest genetic relative to SARS-CoV-2, with a 96.3% RNA similarity. However, the bat virus does not have the spike protein parts used by SARS-CoV-2 for infecting humans. Yet another close relative, a clade of SARS-like pangolin virus from China, has receptor binding domains that closely match the corresponding parts of the novel coronavirus. The bat and pangolin viruses likely recombined to form SARS-CoV-2. Recombining could occur when two similar viruses infect the same cell. When this happens, molecules that made up the distinct viruses are reshuffled into a new pathogen. So there you go. The coronavirus probably is not an escaped lab culture or a rogue bioweapon. Was COVID-19 an accidentally released biological weapon? Scientists say no. Scientists rebutted the theory that the novel coronavirus originated as an engineered biological weapon, saying, "Our analysis clearly showed that SARS-CoV-2 is not a laboratory construct or a purposefully manipulated virus." Researchers say the novel coronavirus was not made in a lab after comparing its RNA sequence to SARS, MERS, and other coronaviruses, including the HKU1, which is known to cause mild symptoms in humans. The study is published in Nature Medicine. Citing the authors, Live Science reports the study focuses on the novel coronavirus's spike protein. The protein consists of receptor binding domains, also known as RBDs, and a cleavage site. The RBD hooks onto an ACE2 receptor on the surface of human cells, then the cleavage site opens the receptor for the virus to enter. The spike protein design is deemed so effective that it could only have resulted from natural selection and not human engineering. When scientists simulated the virus in computer models, they found computers to underrate COVID-19's infectiousness by a significant margin. Study co-author Christian Anderson of Scripps Research was cited as saying, if scientists designed the virus, they would not have chosen the spike protein mutations that seemed ineffective. Additionally, biological weapons were usually created from deadly viruses, but SARS-CoV-2's close relatives are bat and pangolin viruses that are largely innocuous. The virus is speculated to have spread from bats to pangolins to humans. According to the researchers, they are working to determine at what point SARS-CoV-2 developed the cleavage site mutations that increased its infectiousness.
Taiwan has been one of the most successful countries in the world at tackling COVID-19, but its latest outbreak highlights both some complacency towards the virus and the country's notable vulnerability to its effects. Here's what you need to know. Last year, Taiwan went more than 250 days without reporting any locally transmitted cases of COVID-19, according to CNN. However, after an outbreak last week, as of Wednesday morning, May 19th, it had 1,119 active cases, according to Taiwan's Central News Agency. The outbreak has been linked to pilots entering the country and comes in the wake of an April 15th decision to reduce their quarantine times, according to Bloomberg. On April 29th, guests and staff at the Taipei Taoyuan International Airport Novotel Hotel were evacuated after an employee was diagnosed with COVID-19. The hotel had been used as a quarantine site for airline crew members and as a lodging for normal guests, according to Taiwan News. Days later, on May 11th, the outbreak resurfaced, this time with 9 cases connected to the former president of the Lions Club International branch in New Taipei City, who tested positive, having visited a hostess bar in Taipei City's Wanhua district, an area that is now a virus hotspot, according to Bloomberg. Though rapid testing sites are now being set up, according to Taiwan Central News Agency, Bloomberg cites Our World and data in reporting that until now, Taiwan has had one of the lowest COVID-19 testing rates in the world. What's more, by Monday, May 17th, just 0.9% of Taiwan's 23.5 million population had received their first vaccine shot. China, meanwhile, has administered enough vaccines to cover 14.5% of its population, while in the UK and the US, over 30% of people are already fully vaccinated. Now, Taiwan is racing against time in 3 directions. Firstly, hoping new restrictions on movement reduce or at least limit the rise in infections. Taipei Mayor Ke Wen-je has said that Taipei residents have already voluntarily locked down the city, according to Taiwan News, but the Taiwanese government has so far resisted a formal lockdown in favor of tight regulations around gatherings, as well as moving all schools to online lessons. Second, Taiwan is trying to rapidly increase its testing capacity. On Friday, the opening of 4 new rapid testing stations in Taipei was announced, with Taipei Mayor Ke Wen-je issuing an amnesty order for undocumented migrant workers who need to apply for treatment or to be tested. Finally, Taiwan is also attempting to increase the percentage of its population that has been vaccinated. As of Wednesday morning, it had only taken delivery of around 315,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. However, Taiwan's representative to the U.S., Xiao Biqing, said in a Facebook post on Tuesday that some of the reported 5 million doses of the Moderna vaccines it has ordered will arrive next month, while cabinet spokesman Luo Ping-cheng announced that 400,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were scheduled to arrive in Taiwan on Wednesday afternoon, according to Taiwan Central News Agency. Bloomberg reports that Taiwan is also likely to benefit from U.S. President Joe Biden's pledge to share millions of doses of vaccines with other nations by the end of June. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, May 18th, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen announced that 2 of Taiwan's domestically developed vaccines should be ready for release by late July, according to Taiwan News. The primary method through which COVID-19 is spreading is being contested by scientists. Here's what you need to know. Airborne transmission of COVID-19 is not simply possible. There is consistent, strong evidence that this is the dominant method by which it spreads, according to a new review article published in the Lancet Medical Journal. The authors of the review suggest that an overemphasis on spread through large respiratory droplets at close range could mean public health policies have been misdirected. In scientific briefings made available on its website, the WHO defines aerosols as being less than 5 micrometers in diameter and respiratory droplets as being greater than 5 micrometers in diameter. However, the Lancet states that droplets with diameters of up to 100 micrometers may be able to spread the virus through the air. Foremost among its justifications for this claim is the role of superspreader events in spreading COVID-19. These events, whereby a large number of people in the same area are infected with the virus, cannot be explained by close-range respiratory droplets or fomites, the review says. Further evidence in the same direction comes from observations of transmission between people in adjacent rooms in quarantine hotels, but never in each other's presence. This is not the first time the WHO's emphasis on short-range respiratory droplet and fomite transmission has been questioned. In February, science journal Nature suggested that investing in costly disinfection efforts could have meant underinvesting in more effective ventilation systems. The WHO itself remains reticent about drawing firm conclusions on the airborne versus short-range respiratory droplet debate, with the report it commissioned concluding that the lack of recoverable viral culture samples of the virus prevents us from doing so.
For more news animations and explainers, hit the subscribe and bell button to join the TomoNews family. Thanks for watching.